When should I retire? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Doug, the retirement guy. And I get this question so many times from so many different people of when should I retire? And so I wanted to just sit down as a heart to heart and really give you guys some input of when you should retire, how does it all fit, where does it all comes about. One of the big things here is so a lot of people say 59 and a half. Is that the new sweet spot or is it just a planning tool? Because so many things change when you hit 59 and a half in your life. And I've gone through this. I'm 60 years old. I retired 10 years ago. So this whole thing is a number. It was a timing for me. It was a timing positioning that I felt comfortable that this is what I wanted to do. So we're going to break this thing all down and share with you is 59 and a half the magic number. It can open doors, but there's more to it than just a simple number. Hey guys, before we go any farther, I got to do the disclaimer that this content is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not financial advice. If you need that, contact a financial advisor. And past performances do not guarantee future results. So just remember, this is all for fun. Hey, before we get into too deep into this, I got to do a shout out. I don't take sponsorships. I don't do endorsements. I don't do anything. I try to keep everything upfront and honest and biased as much as I can. So how do we keep the channel going? How do we keep making these great videos and these different pieces? Well, it's right here. This supports the channel. The 11 ounce and 15 ounce coffee mugs. You can get them right on my corporate website right here. Hit the QR code, hit the link down below. It'll take you right to everything that we offer. Because we just added a brand new item, a 40 ounce travel mug. Yep, this thing came because I had my 15 ounce mug carrying it to my truck and dropped it and shattered it. And I said, this is ridiculous. How many other people will do this? And so we came up with the 40 ounce travel mug. Do the same thing. QR code, hit the link down below. Everything helps support the channel so we can keep putting these videos out for you. So let's talk about this. The true number one, time is an asset. You've heard this time and time again, but it's a true thing. Time is an asset. The more, it's a one more year trap you end up getting into. Common delays, waiting for a paid off mortgage, another $200,000 in savings, or a safer mark entry point. The hidden cost, every additional year of work is one fewer year of travel, family, hobbies, deferring your personal goals. And these are the things that hit me when I did this back 10 years ago. I wanted to travel when I was still young, healthy, all the way across the board. I already was starting to have grandkids at that point. I was like, wow, I want to be able to do this stuff with them. I want to go to the hockey games. I want to do other things that they wanted to get involved into. And I knew I could never get the time back. Okay? And I always said this is currency is renewable. Capital, we can always get more of it. Time, we don't have that. You have no way of getting additional time. Assigning real value. Basically, I just said irreplaceable versus replaceable. Money can potentially be replaced and earned back through the markets, but time can never get yourself back at any price. So there's a big switch from stop treating time as if it has no financial value, but a successful plan accounts for cost of working longer. Number two, the health span matters. So here's the magic thing. None of us know what the future brings. Okay, I'm not even an expert. I can't even tell you what it is. But there is what we call the nonlinear age. The Stanford Medical Research identified a significant molecular shift cluster around 44 and 60. Okay, so it's not a gradual slope. Aging isn't always a slow, predictable process. Health and mobility can change abruptly. And trust me, guys, I believe in this 100% because just a year ago, I got diagnosed. I had to have double hip replacement. Here's a guy who's playing pickleball and doing things and always active all the way through. And I was slowing down, which I thought was just old age, to find out that both of my hips were gone. So your early adventure, the go-go years, provide that high capacity for travel, family projects, and volunteering. So that a strategic advantage is the 5.5 year bonus. Retiring at 59 and a half instead of 65 buys back 5.5 years of your peak health. Your energy reserves. These years often represent a higher energy, mobility, and cognitive capacity in retirement. And irreplaceable assets. Every extra year of work is one fewer year of hobbies, relationships, and deferred goals. And I learned this so much when I had to go through, basically, I was shut down for almost an entire year. Um, some of it being stuck in the house, trying to recover from double replacement, and other times is now rebuilding my entire muscle structure because of it. So I've learned a lot over those in that 1 year period, and I come back and said, man, thank God I did retire, 9 years beforehand. Now, the truth number three, what changes at 59 and a half? Well, the penalty barrier drops. Under the federal tax rules, withdrawals from many retirement accounts before the age of 59 and a half are typically subject to a 10% early distribution tax. At the age of 59 and a half, this specific obstacle is generally removed. Now, I know there's other rules that, different things happen. At 55, there's sometimes that you can get away with things, and there's a lot of different other plans, but really across the board, 59 and a half is that magic number. Accounts like your traditional IRAs, your 401ks, become more accessible part of your income bridge. Now, the taxable remains. Access doesn't mean tax-free. Its pre-tax withdrawals are still included in your taxable income. Your Roth accounts have separate qualification rules, and they mandate that 5-year holding period. And then employee plan rules. Some employee plans, like 401ks, may allow penalty-free access as early as 55 upon separation. So, like I said, there's a lot of different rules out there, but the one I'm just kind of carving in the stone is that 55 or 59 and a half point. So it really removes that financial obstacle, but does not automatically prove retirement's readiness. Remember that. Just because you don't get hit with that 10% does not mean you're ready for retirement. There's a lot of things you have to put into this. Now, the retirement income bridge that I talked about, successful retirement planning moves beyond that single item of that nest egg. How much do I keep building more and more money, more grow, grow, grow? For 30 years, you've been underneath this realm of you got to grow your nest egg. It correlates various income capital sources to create a seamless bridge from your final paycheck to your later life benefits like Social Security or Medicare. So what am I talking about with this? Well, your tax deferred, your traditional IRAs. Okay, you can start pulling money out at 59 and a half. That could be part of your bridge, one of the streams or one of the pillars of your bridge. The liquidity, a taxable brokerage account. Now, I had this long before I had ever had a 401k. I had a brokerage account. And I'm like, I can do whatever I want. I have no age basis or penalties to use my brokerage account. Tax-free, the Roth plans. As long as you've had that thing for 5 years, you got a Roth plan. It can be a third leg of an income. And then dividends and interest. And we've talked a lot about that on this channel, but your dividends and your interest are another passive income source. And then your safety, your cash reserves. And then when you get to the point of Social Security and your pensions, that long-term income floor coordinates is like everything on top. You've built a solid bridge, not just a single pillar, not just one thing paying you. You built a nice bridge with 5 very strong pillars with a nice road across from it. Now, rule number 4 is the one that most people miss and most people don't understand. And unfortunately, we are hammered with this over and over and over. And this is called the 4% rule. Is the most often misunderstood rule when you're looking at retirement. Now, historically, this was researched by William Bengen to find a suitable initial withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement. If you don't know who he was a aircraft engineer. And if you know with aircraft engineering or engineers as a whole, they're going to dial everything down to the 10th of 1% of error. They won't have much error in what they give. So based on a 1968 market period, one of the most difficult times to retire, the original finding was a 4.15 widely simplified to a flat 4% for easy planning. Later research with broader profiles increased the guide to approximately 4.7. And what that rule is that you take your basic, what your pot is, how much money you have in your pot, you can withdraw up to 4% every year. That's what you lived on. That was your number. If you have a different way of backing into the number, that 4% was always the number that they used. The rule is a safety benchmark, not an inflexible forecast or a spending requirement. Okay? Worst case guardrail. It reflects what worked even in the poorest historical markets. Okay? The dynamic baseline. It serves as a starting point that you should be adjusting as markets evolve, and avoid the portfolio prison. Rigidly sticking to the 4% may lead to unnecessary fatigue. Okay, use this as a guide rail, not the prison. Okay, use it as, well, we're going to pull out too much money. Let's be careful here. Stay within the guidelines. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you why this is totally misunderstood, because most people say, I have to have 4%. And when you sit down with a financial advisor, okay, I've done this personally. My sister's done this. Actually, my brother's done this. I got a lot of people who have done this, and I always tell them ahead of time. I wrote stuff down, hand it to them. I said, when you're all done, read my note. I said, it was like I read their mind. A financial advisor is going to come to you, and he's going to come back and say, okay, your retirement age is going to be 65 years old. Okay, you're going to have about 25 years of retirement. You're going to need about $1.4 million. Now, if you're anything like me, when I first started this and someone sat down and said, you need $1.4 million, I could have fell back in my chair and hit my head and said, I will never have that much money. There's no way in heck I could ever hit that kind of number. And so you lose focus, you lose game, you lose the whole planning across the board. Then you go pick up the newspaper, and guess what you find? The newspaper. I just seen this in a report myself. You need $1.4 million to retire today. I'm like, wow, did these two get together? Did the financial advisor get together with the newspaper, and did they do all this to try to attack me saying I need $1.4 million to retire? Also in the newspaper, you probably didn't see it, probably didn't come out as proper as I wanted it to, but where do you stand in retirement? By age 30, you should have 1 times your salary. At 40, 3 times. At 50, 6 times. And when you turn 60, you should have 8 times your annual salary to be on track. And I'm like, wow, did you not hear about raising kids and doing things a long time? So there's something behind this that kind of started bothering me. Well, let me just share with you this. The average cost of living for most people in retirement even is $56,000 a year. If you take the 4% and divide that into the 56,000, do you know what that equals out to be? $1.4 million. So all the numbers that are coming back with is everyone's using this 4% rule, that you can only have a 4% withdrawal, and this is how much money you're going to have. This is why, honestly, the 4% rule is very misunderstood. It's not realistic in today's times, and the 1.4 million just doesn't fit. So what we call is the spending gap math. Retirement number is not salary, and that's what they were always trying to work with. The spending gap formula, the desired annual lifestyle spending minus your dependable income equals your portfolio funding gap. So I give you two different scenarios here. If you have no outside income, okay, and realistically, you got a $2.5 million portfolio is to cover that 25 times multiplier, which is the 4% rule, to live off of. Okay? Scenario B is if you get Social Security, then you're going to cut that $100 million difference is going to basically cut your gap to about a $50,000 difference. I don't even like these scenarios. I don't even like playing with these scenarios because I go back to my simple formula. It starts with this. What's your cost of living? Come across what is your cost of living? Then deduct what your dependable income is. You may have Social Security, you may have pensions, you may not have any of them if you're retiring early. Okay? But it just tells you how much you need to have and how much income you need to work with so that you can work around your gap. Because here's the real truth no one ever wants to tell you. The wealth trap. 30-year retirement plan reality is this. Do you know 2/3 of the retirees finished with twice their initial value? That means if they followed that 4% plan, they saved, and when they, after living for 30 years in retirement, 2/3 of the retirements that were in the study came back and said they have twice as much money as their initial starting point. 50% of them had over 3 times their initial starting point. And only 12 out of the 115 in that current study had less than the starting value in 30 years. So why is that so big and important? Well, think about this. You held off from doing things. You held off. You only had that 4% that you were allowed to take in, right? You held back because you needed money because you didn't know how long it was going to last you. Well, only 12 people actually had less money than in 30 years than they started with. Only 12. That's 10%. Okay? Majority of them had twice to 3 times the amount, which means you didn't spend enough in retirement. You didn't get to enjoy your glory years. You didn't get to enjoy your time because people don't tell you is after you break that 70-year point, things start slowing down. Your go-go years are gone and you start slowing down. Not saying you're getting your recliner and you're dead or waiting for dead. You just slow down. You don't do as much. You don't spend as much. So there's prime time in the early years. So why a fixed 4% ceiling can totally be misleading? Well, basically, I'm putting it here in a graph for you to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Is those scenarios and those median incomes and all this all the way through. You can see it's a major, major issue of just playing on the 4% rule. A flexible retirement paycheck is what I like having. The dynamic adjustments as the market goes. The periodic review framework, set a reasonable starting income and reevaluate regularly. Ratcheting model, increase spending by about 10% if your portfolio exceeds 150% of your original value. Limit that to once every 3 years. Defensive downturns, temporarily reduce your discretionary spending during difficult markets to preserve capital core. It's basically manage your money. The life cycle spending arc, go years, that's what I talked about, is the early phases. Typically higher spending for travel, mobility, family projects, personal freedom, all the things that you wanted to do is in your go years. Then you go to your slow goes. And this is the middle phase. Lifestyle costs often neutral or naturally decline at this period as activity levels stable and more major goals were already met. It's very similar from my first 10 years. And I loved traveling. I loved traveling. My goal in retirement was to travel. And in my first 10 years, I will tell you what, most people will tell you, boy, you've been on enough cruises. I've maxed out every cruise company's markets, diamonds and platinums and all that kind of stuff, because I cruised to all the different islands in the Caribbean, and we've done Alaska, Hawaii. We've done so much. And I'm like, here we are starting I call them our slow go years, really, because we've done all the travel we want to do. Maybe there's more down the road, but we're doing more family stuff. We're doing more family adventures. Then you move into your no-go years, and those are daily lifestyle spend remaining low. While healthcare and support costs may begin to rise, that you're giving up on the travel and all of that. So those are the three life cycles you have: go, slow go, no go. Now, guys, this is why I've said and I've promoted the three bucket retirement system. I did not make this. This has been out there. I just want to endorse it and show you guys that this is the program that works the best. And you got bucket one, which is a foundation fund. Bucket two is a growth fund. Bucket three is an income fund. So the three bucket retirement system, it's a structured framework to manage sequence of returns and risk while ensuring stability and liquidity. Because income is not just yield. Don't get me wrong. You don't just put your money in an account and say, oh, look at this one, I'm getting 15% yield. That means nothing. It really doesn't. It's the freedom that we're looking for. It requires the balanced distribution rates with total return, NAV stability, and tax efficiency. I cover that all the time on the channel, and I really don't want to get too deep into it on this one, because I really believe that there's a lot of pieces to this that I'm trying to cram into a very short video. Foundation. Foundation is something that you're going to have 1 to 2 years of cash, money market funds, kind of protective things. Growth, you're going to have funds that are going to kind of grow your portfolio because you got inflation, but you got to make sure you can always refill buckets. And the income bucket is the one we always talk about, and that's where you're getting your income to live on. And this is the one I really start getting into, the truth. Freedom is about spending, not just how big your balance is. The $2 million trap. High assets don't guarantee readiness if lifestyle costs are unchecked. High burn rates can create structural fatigue. Okay? I've seen people have had annual spending over $150,000, and I said, you're not ready for retirement. You're not ready at this. You may be at the right age, but you're not ready for it. You haven't got your spending in check. A $750,000 portfolio is reality. $1 million portfolio today, guys, is a luxury. 750, probably more realistic. Okay? But if you have your costs in control, you're ready to retire. Lifestyle and income audit. What does your essential lifestyle actually cost you? I've told you that. You go through what's my total cost? What's my grocery bill? What's my car insurance? What's my car payment if I have one? What's my housing cost? And when I say housing cost, you may not have a house payment, but you got taxes, you got insurance, you got maintenance. You got to figure out all what your actual costs are to live. Each expense, disappear. Commute, clothes, savings. All of those are going to go. When you retire, you're not going to be commuting as much. Trust me. I did a video on my wife's car. She's had it now for almost a year already, and it's only got less than 5,000 miles onto it. When she was putting 25,000 on a year. Clothing. You don't go to fancy clothing anymore. When will Social Security kick in? When will pensions provide? And then the resilience and the flexibility. You must invest and to prove that gap. Okay? You got to calculate what that gap is so you can make up the difference. How will you handle a 20% market decline? It's another big question. And how much flexibility exists in your wants and your needs? And these are actually, I'll say easy answers or easy questions to ask, and they're actually easy to answer if you really sit down and take your time. But the 5 things you need to know before retiring and finding your age. And 59 and a half for some people, perfect. Other people, it's not. But you need to have a real retirement budget. Review actual spendings from the past 12 months. Distinguish essential needs from optional lifestyle goals like travel, hobbies, and family support. A healthcare insurance bridge. Since Medicare, you're not eligible until you're 65, make sure you have a plan. I personally covered that. We have a marketplace plan that we bought. There's Cobra out there, and there's private plans. To cover that multi-year gap from 59 and a half to that 65, you got to count on some insurance there. And it's not hard to do, guys. It's very hard, and it's actually very inexpensive. A tax withdrawal strategy: map out your withdrawals from the taxable, traditional, and your Roth accounts. Order matters for tax brackets and future RMDs and your Social Security taxation. A market downturn plan: what's your plan? Define exactly how you'll respond if a market drops 20% in your first year. Identify your cash reserves and your assets that you'll want to protect from selling. And a purpose. This is number 5, but I almost want to tell you it should be probably up there at either number 1 or number 2. Have a purpose for retirement. Financial readiness is only half the battle. Determine what you want to do and what you're retiring to. I always put it this way. I told everyone, it's what you're retiring from and what you're retiring to. Okay? I had a gentleman, a real quick story I'll say, a gentleman that I knew, he worked IT, did a lot of stuff like that, and he says, my goal is I want to play golf. I want to play golf. And this guy got up at 7 o'clock every morning, and literally 7 days a week. Got up every morning at 7 o'clock, hopped on his golf cart, drove to the golf course, played 18 holes of golf. Was so excited, he says, I can play a round of golf depending on who's in front of me, but we can pretty much play within 2.5 to 3 hours. So I'm like, are you rushing through it? He says, no, I'm just hit and run, hit and go, hit and go. He goes 2.5, 3 hours. Gets off his golf cart, drives all the way back home, makes himself his lunch, has a Coke, goes on the couch, takes a nap, wakes up. I'm like, and? Well, that's what I did. That lasted him 6 months, and the guy was bored out of his mind. That was his goal, to retire to golf, and he got bored in 6 months. So whether it's volunteering or a second career or creative projects, I'm not saying golf's bad, but you got to have something to go to. It's very, very critical for mental and your well-being. So 59 and a half, an opportunity, not a command. The strategic shift at age 59 and a half removes a significant tax barrier, but it's not the universal green light for every retiree. Don't work until 65 simply because it's the conventional standard. Don't let your arbitrary portfolio target, like I have to have $1 million before I can do anything, and don't allow that 4% rule to force you one more year to continue on. You need to get your foundation, you need to get your readiness across the board. You need to get your tax strategy, your health bridge, your portfolio income, your cash reserves, your flexible spending, your Social Security, all dialed in. I did it at 50. My brother did it at 64. My sister did it at 62. Everyone has a different number, okay? But we all have to do the same exact thing. Guys, the whole goal here is what I've learned through my 10 years. It's all about freedom in retirement. And I will tell you right now, if I brought my brother onto the channel, he'd say the same exact thing. It's not how much money I had. It's the freedom that I have. The greatest benefit is freedom. Control over your time, purpose, and a life built around what matters most. Okay? No one ever understands that. It's a better life over a bigger balance. For 10 years, this has been me. We have seen so many islands, so many different sunsets on our time, our control. It's a peace of mind that we deal with. And I want everyone to have that. I want everyone to be there. That's why I do these channels, to help everybody do and get better along in life. Because it's not about money. It's not about my balance. I'm a millionaire. I'm $2 million. It's not about that. It's about the freedom for you to enjoy time on this planet Earth and enjoy what we're here for.